Empire.
Welcome to Inside the Cap. I'm your host, Joel Corey. You can find me on Twitter at Corey Joel. That is CORRYJOEL. And also you can find my Agents Take column at CBSSports.com. This week you're going to be looking at two things. The Sam Darnold trade to the Carolina Panthers and what it means for Teddy Bridgewater. And the number 4 pick in the NFL draft, which is currently held by the Atlanta Falcons, and how Matt Ryan's contract can potentially impact what the Falcons do. Well, last week we had a little more clarity at the top of the draft because Sam Darnold, the New York Jets starting quarterback, was traded to the Carolina Panthers for a 6th-round pick this year and a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick in the 2022 draft. What this means is the Jets are definitively going to take a quarterback at number 2, presumably BYU's Zach Wilson. Darnold is in the 4th year of his contract. He has $4,447,685 worth of cash left. That is what the Panthers are going to take on as a cap charge for Darnold. He's got the 5th-year option that must be picked up by May 3rd, and the Panthers aren't giving up all that compensation for them not to pick up the 5th-year option on Darnold. That's going to be $18.85 million, and there's been a change to 5th-year options, starting with the 2018 draft class, the class which has the options exercised. That's the first round. They're now fully guaranteed upon picking up the option. It used to be they're guaranteed for injury when you pick them up, and then they become fully guaranteed on the first day of the following league year. That's how the Titans were able to get out of the obligation of Adoree Jackson's 5th-year option this year. 2017 first-round pick, $10.244 million base salary. Cut him before the first day of the league year. That is now gone. That didn't happen anymore. So as soon as you exercise the option, it's a firm commitment. My understanding is there is no offset with the 5th-year options, so the player would get to double dip. So the Panthers would cut him, still be on the hook for $18.858 million in 2022. Then he'd go make his money elsewhere, and no offsets. They couldn't recoup any of the $18.858 million. Now, one thing that this did do is, with this whole change in the options being fully guaranteed, is that what Darnold's price tag would have been under the old way, the Adoree Jackson way, is $23.016 million because the options were based on where you're drafted. Picks 1 through 10, transition tag for this year, and that's the quarterback transition tag for 2021. Now it's based on your performance and your play time. So if you're someone who participates in 75% of the offensive or defensive plays, whatever's applicable in 2 of your first 3 seasons, or average at least 50% play time in each of the first 3 years, then your salary is going to be the 3rd through 20th highest paid salaries at a position. And that's how things are calculated for franchise and transition tags. So it's that cap percentage average type thing over the 5-year period. So that's how we get to $18.85 million for Sam Darnold this year, as opposed to $23.016 million. And you could take a look-see, then get out of it. Now, the Jets are going to have, or do have now, $5,019,581 of dead money, resulting from the $20,078,324 signing bonus Sam Darnold had from his rookie contract when he signed it in 2018. Now, Teddy Bridgewater, starting quarterback last year, was signed a 3-year deal for $63 million, and the Panthers obviously weren't happy with him because they were trying to get in on the acquisition of Matthew Stafford, who was traded from the Lions to the Rams. They made a run at him, didn't go their way, so they were looking to find what they thought was an upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater. Now, one of the things with Bridgewater is that he's got $18 million of salary this year, and 10 of it is guaranteed. Base salary is $17 million. He's got $750,000 in per game roster bonuses and a $250,000 workout bonus. That's where the 18 comes from. His cap number this year currently is $22,911,765. So they gave him $33 million in total guarantees in the contract. There is an offset, but any team, they've given now Bridgewater permission to shop himself for a trade. So the clear indication is they're not going to keep Teddy Bridgewater. I might try to keep him and have those two duke it out in a battle, but that doesn't seem to be the direction that they're going to go. Any team that wants to acquire Teddy Bridgewater, contract as is, needs $17,911,765 of cap space. Now, the musical chairs are filling up. You got certain teams which are going to draft a quarterback, so they're out of the mix. And number one, what team needs a quarterback? And two, has that type of cap room to absorb Bridgewater's 2021 salary, or cap number, I should say. And then he's got a 2022 year where he's making $21 million. So that's going to make a trade probably a little more difficult than the Panthers may like. So if they can't find a suitor, they could always they could find a suitor, but also find a trade which isn't to their liking. Then they could also keep him and then release him after June 1. And if they do that, then they're going to have $15 million in dead money for this year and $5 million next year, because you delay the acceleration, any bonus proration in future years from hitting the cap currently. So they have $15 million this year and $5 million next year. So because of that, if he's not going to be traded, that's when he'd be released. They could hold on to him as long as they want it, release him by roster cut down, and be fine. So if they did that, they're picking up $7,911,765 of cap space this year. Or they could just hold on if they don't like a trade they could get this year, or at least early on, and hope that there's a need which pops up because of an injury. We've seen that happen before. It's actually how Bridgewater got replaced in Minnesota. He had that gruesome knee injury in 2016, and that was after Philadelphia had signed Chase Daniel to be a very expensive backup quarterback, signed Sam Bradford, re-signed him for $36 million over 2 years, then drafted Carson Wentz. Wentz was supposed to sit the whole year, but Bridgewater had a career-threatening knee injury, so they were able to work out a trade for a first and fourth round pick to the Vikings for Bradford. So, and we also saw that Ryan Tannehill went down 1 year when Jay Cutler was essentially retired and was going to become a broadcaster, and he came out of retirement and was a stopgap quarterback for the year while Tannehill was out. So that could be another way to go as well. Now, the team which makes the most sense, who has a cap space, Denver. Denver's got about $28 million of cap space. So they could absorb the contract. Drew Lock hasn't been what you'd want in terms of you being sure he is your quarterback on the go-forward basis. But no team really wants to pay Teddy Bridgewater $18 million this year to be a bridge quarterback. The bridge quarterback market is Andy Dalton, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Those guys, $10.5 million this year. Then you got upside where you can make 13 to 14 total through incentives. So if Teddy Bridgewater is going to get traded anywhere, and Denver is the only team which has the cap space to accommodate him, you've got other teams which have been linked. He's been linked to New Orleans, because he played well as Drew Brees' backup there a couple of years ago. They barely have any cap room, so that's a tough one. Bridgewater was supposedly the backup plan if they didn't sign Tom Brady. They don't have a lot of cap room either. They couldn't come close to fitting in Bridgewater. New England, they're close to have enough cap room, but still, they don't have enough. They're like, depending upon who you believe, anywhere from 12 to 14 million in cap space. But they got Cam Newton. They got the 15th overall pick, so is he really that an upgrade over Cam Newton? Yeah, well, so really wouldn't put them into the mix as well. Some people have said Houston, but they signed Tyrod Taylor for a reason, so I wouldn't really take them seriously. We typically don't like to trade a guy off in a division, but we have seen that happen before. Donovan McNabb was traded within the division from the Eagles to the Washington football team. And we also saw years ago Tom Brady's emergence led the Patriots to trade Drew Bledsoe to the Buffalo Bills. So what's got to happen for a trade with Teddy Bridgewater before the draft? One, he's got to take a pay cut, rework the deal. Or Carolina is going to have to eat salary, which you can do. You can't trade cash when you're trying to move an NFL player. So the way you do it is you have the team where the player is currently convert some money into signing bonus, so they're eating salary on the way out the door. That is something that the Houston Texans did a couple of years ago when Jadeveon Clowney was franchised, and they ended up trading to the Seahawks. The Seahawks weren't going to take on all $15 million of his one-year deal. So on the way out the door, $7 million was given to him as a signing bonus, became a cap charge for Houston. So Seattle only took on $8 million. So you would have to have one of two things happen. Teddy Bridgewater is going to have to decide he's willing to play for a lot less than the $18 million. He's already guaranteed 10, so unless he really wants to be at a certain place, I can't imagine he's giving up guaranteed money. And there's got to be some number between 10 and 18, which Carolina is comfortable with, where they're going to eat some salary. It's 15 for them in dead money if they make him a post-June 1 cut. So if they traded him now, they're going to have 10 in dead money right there. So how much do they want to eat to get him off their books? I would imagine the teams are going to want him to eat a substantial amount of money, like anywhere between 5 and up to the guaranteed amount. So there's 10 left that they're absorbing. So between 5 and 8 is what a team would want him to eat, I would imagine. So they'd have to convert that into signing bonus, and then the new team only has a $10 million guarantee, and they have him for 2022. Whether he's going to play in 2022 for $21 million, that would remain to be seen. Now, the other option is what happened with Trent Brown. When Trent Brown was traded from the Raiders to the Patriots, they reworked his deal on the way out the door where he took a pay cut, and they lopped off his 2022 contract year. So, again, Bridgewater probably isn't going to go below $10 million because he's got that guaranteed. So maybe you get him to take the pay cut by lopping off the 2022 year so he's free agent after this year. Now, obviously, if I'm Bridgewater and I'm reworking the deal and I'm the starter, I want to have the upside where I can be made whole. So I've got $8 million of upside where I get it back for being the starter and performing on a fairly high level. Now, another thing that could happen is because of the offset, if you cut him, then he's probably going to sign for league minimum. And his league minimum is $990. He didn't earn a year's service for salary purposes when he was in IR, the year that he hurt his knee. So he has 7 years of actual service, but he has 6 what are called credited seasons for minimum salary purposes. So the Panthers are still going to be on the hook for $9.01 million if they went that route of the salary, because can't imagine he's going to sign for any more than league minimum elsewhere. And he's not going to try to help the Panthers give them any type of break of anything. And the one reason why Denver is the odds-on favorite besides the quarterback is George Payton, the new GM, was the assistant GM in Minnesota when he was drafted. Now, the funny thing is the trade compensation would be less than what got him to New Orleans. When Teddy Bridgewater's contract expired in Minnesota, he signed with the Jets. And ironically, this year they drafted Sam Bradford. So to pave the way for Bradford, they shipped him to New Orleans. It was Bridgewater and a 6th-round pick went to New Orleans for a 3rd-round pick, 2019 3rd-round pick. So I can't imagine any team is giving up a 3rd-round pick for Teddy Bridgewater. It's going to be, I would imagine, some sort of day 3 pick, 4th through 7th round pick, if you are going to acquire Teddy Bridgewater. Now, as I said before, what I would do is I'd probably let the two duke it out, Bridgewater and Darnold. Best man is our quarterback, and we go from there. That doesn't seem to be the way that the Panthers are going to go. Teddy Bridgewater is probably going to be out the door one way or another. Trade, If it's a trade, I would expect it to happen before the draft or during the draft, maybe the second day of the draft on the 30th of April, or he's going to get released sometime after June 2nd. And they could, since there is no roster bonus or anything, they could just hold him until it's most convenient for them to cut him. So we'll see how it shakes out, but I'd be very surprised if Teddy Bridgewater is playing for the Carolina Panthers by the time the 21 regular season starts.
Support for this podcast comes from today's military. You have a calling, we have an answer.
You want to have meaning in whatever you do, from improving your community to making the world a better place. You can find that fulfillment in today's military. You have a calling, we have an answer. Learn more at todaysmilitary.com.
What's up? It's Mike Jones from the Football Jones podcast. I know you're enjoying your time with Inside the Cap, but once you're done, I want to invite you to come over and check out my podcast. Each week, we take a deep dive into some of the most pressing topics around the NFL. High-profile guests from the coach, player, and front office ranks, as well as the top league insiders. Check out the Football Jones podcast, another fine product brought to you by Empire Media.
The NFL draft doesn't get interesting until the fourth pick. We know what's going to happen with the first three picks. They're all going to be quarterbacks. Jacksonville picks number one. Trevor Lawrence of Clemson is presumptive number one pick. The Jets are expected to take BYU's Zach Wilson. Second, 49ers recently moved up from 12 to 3. Take a quarterback. That's either going to be Ohio State's Justin Fields, Alabama's Mac Jones, or North Dakota State's Trey Lance. A lot of speculation is that Jones will be the pick. Could be a smokescreen, but that's what, if it is a smokescreen, they're throwing people in Mac Jones' direction, which means that two of those three guys I just mentioned would be available at number 4. Matt Ryan turns 36 in May. So when you got a 36-year-old quarterback, you're picking number 4, and it's a quarterback-rich year, you're thinking, hey, maybe we need to find our quarterback for the future. Hey, we had last year Green Bay trade up to try to find a quarterback in Jordan Love. And Aaron Rodgers wanted some help, like a wide receiver in a wide receiver rich year, goes out in his MVP. So we've seen teams do that before, just as recently as last year. Ryan, in 2018, became the first $30 million per year player in NFL history. Signed a 5-year, $150 million contract extension. He's got 3 years left on his contract. He's supposed to make 23 this year, 23.75 in 2022, and $28 million in 2023. That's a total of $74.75 million for the 3 years. That's less than $25 million per year. You know who made $25 million in 2020 on a 1-year deal? Phillip Rivers. So that's pretty reasonable by quarterback standards. Now, what does Matt Ryan's contract have to involve this? Well, his quarterback is the most leveraged contract in the NFL. That it's been restructured for cap purposes 4 times since he signed it. Anytime you restructure a contract, you're creating immediate cap room and you're kicking the can down the road. And you're raising cap numbers in future years. And you're adding to the bonus proration that already exists. The first restructure took place March 2019. $8.75 million of Ryan's 2019 base salary turned into signing bonus. That got the Falcons $7 million of immediate cap relief. But his 2020 through 2023 cap numbers went up by $1.75 million apiece. The second restructure took place in December 2019, right before the end of the regular season. $12.5 million of Ryan's 2020 base salary was turned into an option bonus, and his 2023 contract year was turned from a real year into an option year when it was kind of set up where they're going to have to pick up the option. And the option exercise was first couple of days of the 2020 league year. So the proration wouldn't start until 2020. So what that did was that cleared $9.375 million of 2020 cap space because that option bonus got prorated 20 through 2023. So his Ryan's 21 through 2023 cap numbers went up by $3.125 million each. Now a third salary conversion was done March 2020. So they weren't done lowering the 2020 cap numbers. They lowered it twice in a span of a couple of months. And $6.95 million of Ryan's 2020 base salary got converted to signing bonus, and that lowered his 2020 cap number by $5,212,500. So that's the second lowering. And his 2021 through 23 cap numbers increased by $1,737,500. Now, at that time, that gave Matt Ryan the second largest 2021 cap number in the NFL, behind Ben Roethlisberger's $41.25 million. That made it $40,912,500. I thought Falcons would leave it alone so they had more flexibility down the road with Ryan. But drastic times call for drastic measures. With the salary cap dropping $15.7 million from $198.2 million to its current $182.5 million level, and the Falcons having arguably the second worst cap situation behind the Saints this March, about 3.5 weeks ago, they restructured him again. And by this point in time, Ben Roethlisberger no longer had the highest cap number in the league. It belonged to Ryan because Roethlisberger took a pay cut in Pittsburgh and lowered his cap number in the process. So this time they took 21 out of the $23 million that Ryan was supposed to make, turned it into a fully guaranteed roster bonus. Now, if you have a fully guaranteed roster bonus, it gets treated just like signing bonus for cap purposes. And by that I mean that you have skill cap, salary cap, and injury guarantees all when you do the restructure at signing, you prorate it. So you get to prorate the $21 million over the remaining 3 years, 21 through 23. So that's $14 million of cap space you pick up for 2021, and you in turn raise Ryan's cap numbers in 2022 and 2023 by $7 million each. So Ryan now has the largest 22 cap number. In 2022, his cap number is $48,662,500, highest in the league. And in 2023, it's $43,612,500. There is now more bonus proration because of the multiple restructures in Ryan's 2022 cap number than there is salary. There's $23.75 million of salary, and there's $24,912,500 of bonus proration. Just as a reference point, before Atlanta started kicking the can down the road with these multiple restructures, Matt Ryan's original 2022 cap number was $36.8 million, and his original 2023 cap number was $31.75 million. So we're sitting here in a quarterback-rich draft, and Ryan turns 36 in May. So perfect time for you to take the heir apparent to Matt Ryan. Well, if you take the heir apparent to Matt Ryan right now, he doesn't play for 2 years barring an injury to Matt Ryan, or Matt Ryan just the wheels fall off because of the contract. Because how are you going to get rid of him next year? One, you don't restructure the contract for him not to be your quarterback this year. So you're pretty much stuck with him for 2 years, because if he's still good, you wouldn't cut him. You try to trade him. And if you trade him, you have $40.525 million of a cap charge or dead money. A cap charge for a player no longer on a roster. That would be unheard of. We already have one which me and a lot of other people thought wouldn't happen. That Carson Wentz was traded to Indianapolis from Philadelphia despite the Eagles having a $33,820,611 cap charge for him. There had never been an amount of dead money at that level until now. The previous record was $21.8 million, which the Rams had last year for trading Brandon Cooks. So maybe it's not that big of a leap to go from 33.82 to 40.525 million next year, but that would be the NFL's third largest cap charge. That would be unprecedented to have that amount of dead money. Now, there have been some people who said, oh yeah, they could just wait till June 2nd and trade him, and then they don't have the $15,912,500 of 2023 bonus proration become a 2022 cap charge, because if you trade someone after June 2nd, bonus proration from future years doesn't hit the cap to the following year. That's all well and good, but there's one problem with that. Matt Ryan has a $7.5 million third day of the 2022 league year roster bonus. That means if he's on the roster, whatever day that is, sometime presumably late March, that becomes a Falcons obligation. I don't really see the Falcons delaying a trade till June 2nd after paying him $7.5 million. So a trade, the realistic window for the trade would be before that roster bonus hit. Because, yeah, the cap's going to go up next year, but you're still going to pay back some of the money which was used to keep the cap from dropping to the level it should have because of the losses due to the pandemic. Should have been 155 to 160, that range. So if the cap gets back up to where it was in 2020 or gets to $200 million, that'd be great. Even though the new TV deals have been signed and negotiated, they don't kick in till 2023, 2024. So that'd be a hard pill to swallow. And yes, if they did trade him, they get $8,137,500 of cap space. And they're going to free up $43,912,500 of 2023 cap space because of the team that would acquire him would be taking on the $28 million salary, and the 2023 bonus proration becomes a 2022 cap charge if you're going to trade him before that roster bonus hits. But I'm a skeptic of that. So you take the quarterback, that's 2 years, Matt Ryan's your guy. Now, if you pass on the quarterback at 4, then you're saying, hey, we're in on Matt Ryan. We think he can play at a pretty high level for the next 3 years of his contract. So what do? You take the best player available regardless of position. That means it's Florida tight end Kyle Pitts, Oregon offensive tackle Penei Sewell, or wide receiver. And you got 3 guys who are considered head and shoulders above everybody else in the wide receiver class. LSU's Jamar Chase, and the 2 Alabama receivers, Devonta Smith, Heisman Trophy winner, and Jalen Waddle. Wide receiver is interesting to me because you already got Julio Jones, who's arguably been the best wide receiver in football over the past 5 years. He's 32 now. And they've left his contract alone. They haven't restructured his. He only played 9 games last year because of hamstring problems. He's from Alabama. That opened the door for 2018 first-round pick Calvin Ridley, also from Alabama, to have a breakout season last year. 90 catches, 1,374 yards, 9 touchdowns for Ridley. So if you did for some reason go wide receiver, and I know Thomas Dimitroff the former GM, drafted Ridley and Jones, Terry Fontenot, the new GM, and head coach Arthur Smith may not have the same affinity for Alabama receivers as Dimitroff. Well, Arthur Blank weighs in, the owner. Who knows? Maybe it'd be an Alabama receiver if you go that route. I think if they stay put, it's Kyle Pitts, the tight end. But let's say you go wide receiver. Then the domino effect is Julio Jones is probably gone in 2022 before the draft, which would free up $3.763 million in cap space and have $15.5 million of dead money. Now, I was someone who didn't think that they'd touch Ryan's contract to begin with. So it'd be interesting to see what happens if they go receiver. But as I said before, I think they'd go Kyle Pitts if they stay put. Now, you could also trade down, presumably for a team which wants one of those quarterbacks that's left over that San Francisco didn't take. The 2 teams which make the most sense from where they're picking the draft would be the Denver Broncos with the 9th pick and the New England Patriots 15th pick. Now, Denver's also linked to Bridgewater, as we discussed earlier. So those are 2 most logical teams. You also have 2 other teams. It'd be harder for them to move there that don't have long-term answers at quarterback. The Washington football team, Chicago Bears, they pick 19th and 20th. So the draft starts really at 4 because that's where the drama starts. Supposedly, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith weren't on the same page, but now are. That the reports were that Fontenot was focused on a quarterback and Arthur Smith thought there was enough left in Ryan's tank, gas left in his tank. They didn't necessarily need a quarterback. So we'll see what the Falcons do and which direction they go. Quarterback of the future, the heir apparent, who's going to have to sit most likely 2 years. Trade down, fill up other needs, because this wasn't a great football team. There's a reason they're picking 4 if they're 4-12 last year, so they got holes. or do they take the best player available and think they can make the playoffs next year? So this will be one to watch over the next couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks before the draft starts on April 29th.
Hey there, it's John Keim of the John Keim Report podcast. I'm glad you're enjoying the Inside the Cap podcast with Joel Correa. When you're done, I invite you to listen to my podcast. Twice a week, my guests and I discuss the Washington football team and the NFL. The show features numerous NFL insiders, former and current players and executives, and taps into the insight gained in my 25-plus years covering this franchise. Check out the John Keim Report, another fine product offered by Empire Media.
Well, that's going to be it for this week's Inside the Cap. As I said before, you can follow me on Twitter at Corey Joel. That is CORRYJOEL. And also, I have my regular CBSSports.com column, Agents Take. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.